Hey, apologies for not uploading any videos in a while. I've just been busy with work and trying to finish remixing and remastering this project. Literally just finished up yesterday and I'm finally happy with the results. I was using VSX to do the remixing. It made it a lot easier for me to get the results and the sound that I wanted, and yeah, I'm happy with how they've turned out so far. Definitely an improvement in quality over the original mixes. This plugin that I'm taking a look at today is called Dynameter by a plugin company called MeterPlugs from mastering engineer Ian Shepherd. This plugin is like a utility-based plugin that's designed to help you maintain the dynamics in the recorded audio in the mastering stage so that you're not crushing it. Basically, how I'm using it is I'm putting it on the post effects on Studio One, and then I'm adjusting my limiter in order to maintain this minimum and target of 8. You can adjust it for different platforms. But I'm going for the limited one. I'm just using Spotify as the preset there. I'm not going to be able to talk over this because of, I don't know, I haven't figured out a way to lower the output of Studio One, so it's because it's mastering, it's hitting -1, which means that if I try to talk over the top of it, I'm basically going to have to shout. So, but yeah, I measured the least dynamic and loudest parts of these songs. So say this song here, the loudest part's the outro. In the way now, it's just my mind. So as you can see there, it was going into the red here, but not for so long or in such an extreme way that it went lower than 8. The other way to sort of maintain the dynamics a little bit better, or stop the limiter from basically going over the 8, was to use dynamic EQ. So in the louder parts of this song, if I go back a little bit here, and I'll solo these bands and I'll let you hear what I'm reducing with the dynamic EQ in order to have it limit more transparently and allow me to maintain some of the dynamics here. So yeah, that just helped to keep the dynamics. Allowed me to squeeze a tiny bit more out of the limiter so that the dynamics would remain. Same thing on this next track. She said, let's ride around town, and when we blow through the ceiling, it'll all come crashing down. So same idea. I was literally just riding the line there on the limiter until I got to the point where it would go into the 7, and then it would just dial it back ever so slightly until it wasn't going past 8 again. And then using, again, dynamic EQ, just reduce certain frequencies. Same sort of range as in that last track there. So at the start of this track, it's a bit more dynamic.
Oh, my lover, won't you please listen? No, I hear it all the damn time. Gotta find the parts that I'm missing. Oh, baby, hear this heart of mine. She said I'm riding a feeling. She said let's ride around town. And when we blow through the ceiling, it'll all come crashing down.
So yeah, it sort of descends into a very noisy, fuzzy kind of wall of noise with a distorted organ and distorted vocals and quite crashy hi-hats and things. So yeah, that track, the loudest part, where you sort of, most of the dynamics are being crushed out of it just because everything's so distorted. So next track, this middle section here, sort of a bridge section, is the most or the least dynamic part of it. So yeah, in that track as well, same thing. Right in the dynamics. Get a dynamic EQ in, bringing down these loud parts. Just to allow the limiter to be a bit more transparent and squeeze a tiny bit more dynamics out of it. Or maintain dynamics. This last track was a bit different because it starts off not very dynamic. So you can see there it's sort of going into the grey. It's gone down to 5. So on that track I'm sort of breaking the rules a little bit, but when the drums come in it becomes a lot more dynamic. So yeah, in that song I'm breaking the rules a little bit because it's going down to sort of 5 PSR, which the minimum is supposed to be 8, but it's just because that first section has bass, sort of a ebo guitar and then a swelling guitar, and they all kind of converge into sort of something that doesn't really have much dynamics. So in this instance, I don't know, if I tried to maintain the dynamic range there, yeah, it would negatively impact the volume of the entire song. So what I did notice listening on these M50X headphones is that the snare is sounding a little bit too sharp on this track. So what I'm going to do is show you how I use the dynamic EQ to try and minimize those sort of effects. This is how I've been using the dynamic EQ to sort of try and make the limiter a bit more transparent and squeeze a little more out of the limiter before it reduces the dynamics.
She's like a weeping widow.
So I'll just show you between the different songs, the loudest parts of them.
Oh my, what's in the way now? It's just my mind. The flames of the fire and feed the flames until they can't get We go.
So yeah, that's how I've been using MeterPlugs Dynameter on mastering projects at the minute, and I'm finding it very, very helpful. And I'm finding that in general, if I squeeze the dynamics too much, the masters come out sounding harsh sounding compared to what they do if I keep it within the 8 PSR minimum. Also, I find it's quite useful and gives you quite good insight if you have it on your master fader on your actual DAW project, because it can show you how much dynamics are there. So what I found was that certain plugins like HD2 Black Box was crushing the dynamics in some of the songs that I had it on, even in very small amounts. Also, certain bus compressors were just sucking the dynamics out of the mix bus, even at very small, slight settings. So it's good insight there, showing you different plugins and the effect that they're having on your overall mix. So for example, I have BX Townhouse on here, but it's disabled If I enable it on this track, even with no gain reduction, just watch what happens. So as you can see there, just enabling it with no gain reduction completely destroyed the dynamics. The dynamics were already quite low in that section, but when I enabled the townhouse compressor, it just annihilated the remaining dynamics. So I've kind of stopped using bus compressors now on my mix bus and even in mastering, even though before I had this, I was thinking, oh, that sounds good with that on, because it was adding some character to the sound. In terms of dynamics, it's just robbing it of all its dynamics, even without any compression, which I found very strange. So yeah, excellent utility, well worth having for mixing and mastering. Works really well. Simple to use, intuitive to use. It might be a little bit challenging at first because maybe you're used to having less dynamic mixes and you think that they're loud and they sound good. But what I find is if I keep the PSR within 8 or a minimum of 8 and I'm listening to it in the car and I put it at the maximum volume that I listen to in the car, it's still as loud as I expect it to be and how I feel like I need it to be, but it doesn't distort and it translates well on different devices, and it should, in theory, be fine on various platforms. It's not going to be artificially reduced in gain on Spotify or Apple or Tidal or whatever it happens to be, YouTube. Yeah, really cool plugin and provides excellent insight. I definitely recommend it. Cheers.